Meeting is now live on YouTube. So what I'm waiting for then is a link that I'm able to share on Facebook. Here it comes.
Yeah, and then send it over to me. I'll share it too.
Okay. Okay, do you want me to, hold on. You can't hear, can you hear that echo?
I don't hear it.
Okay, that means it's only me.
Send it over to me. I'll share it too.
Is it okay to send it to you via Facebook Messenger?
Sure.
Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to also post it. Okay. So for, hold on.
Copy.
Facebook not letting us go live right now. So join us. So join us on YouTube. And then I'm also going to tag you. Okay. Now, I just have to mute that and we're good. Hey, Kyle, I can see that Kyle is watching us on YouTube right now. We're going to wait and let some of our people make the trek over from Facebook. Let's see here. There you go. And then I'm going to ask people to share this. Well, I don't know what's going on with Facebook today, but that's not... And then in addition, what I'm going to do is I'm going to record this in case something goes wrong and I end up having to just share the video. Sorry, I'm just talking to myself.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay, see, now I hear all that noise on your end again. So I wonder what that is. Okay, and now I don't. What'd you do differently? Lou, are you from the future? Because you look like you're from the future.
You guessed it.
And you know what? If I need a lawyer, I want one from the future.
Exactly. That's, you can't lose that. Exactly what my website says.
Lou Shapiro, attorney from the future. That is excellent. Okay, just want to make sure that people
at current rates. That's the key.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Okay, so let's just start our conversation, and if anyone misses it, we'll be able to share it later with them. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got the fabulous Lou Shapiro on the line with us right now, joining us live from, where are you? Are you in Beverly Hills right now?
Yes, Century City area.
Century City area. And the reason you're not in court is because why?
Because basically, the courts are for the most part closed. Only essential services are being handled by the courts. So to simplify that, someone gets arrested, they have their first court appearance, that's being handled. Somebody needs to file a restraining order because someone's stalking them and harassing them, that's permitted to be filed and handled. But everything else is just being continued out. On the average, I'm seeing 90 days in the trenches.
Wow. Okay, so if you're dealing with any kind of family law, any kind of divorce, child support, child custody hearings, all that has been put off, right?
Right. So most of that's been put off. Maybe if there's like a child custody visitation issue, like one parent is not bringing the child over as planned, that would be considered like an emergency or essential service. But short of that, yeah, people are out of luck.
Okay, so if you're working with an attorney, you probably should have heard from your attorney by now. If not, then you check with your attorney, correct?
Right. Most attorneys I'm seeing are including in their signature at the bottom, like due to the coronavirus, these are the limited issues that we can handle at this time.
Okay. All right. So we know that most of the courts are shut down. But are you still doing some sort of work? Like, are some of the attorneys having to handle this? And if you are, how are you actually doing it with all the social distancing that has to be going on?
So most attorneys I'm speaking to, they're saying that their caseload is just taking a dive right now. There's no new calls coming in. It's very quiet. The only people that are really working in the field of law right now are the public defenders, prosecutors, and obviously judges and court staff. Because people that are getting arrested for the day-to-day crime, they're being brought in. They need to be handled, and they're not happy to be in court either. There's a lot of friction going on right now, and the LA Times is doing a good job of covering it. Whereas there's no video conferencing set up. So for private lawyers like me, they're allowing us to just call in on speakerphone. The judge calls the case, and we continue without me having to be exposed, vice versa. But the prosecutors and public defenders, they're being forced to still go into the courthouse, go into the courtroom, expose themselves to inmates, and it's causing quite an uproar in the
Wow.
trenches. Yeah.
Yeah. So it would seem that the system really isn't set up like we're finding out about many other systems, but it doesn't sound like the court system is really set up to have handled this kind of a situation.
Right. Orange County, to their credit, they realized they weren't set up like you're saying, and they said, we're going to close until we can get all video conferencing put into place. So that way attorneys and staff don't expose themselves. So that's in the works. But LA County has not taken that position. And that's why there's a lot of resentment towards the courthouse leadership.
All right. As far as you know, and I ask this question just because I know there are people of all sorts out there. Um, are the number of arrests, do you have any idea whether that has gone up or down? I mean, is this uh, are the thought of, someone being arrested and having to go through the process will work, but do you know at all whether, you know, they're relaxing the rules out there, people aren't getting arrested as much as they used to? Do you have any idea?
Yes, there's definitely been reported about a 20% drop in crime. That's what we know. And the reason for that is if people aren't going out, then there's very limited opportunity to do things wrong. Uh, I don't think bank robbers or even they're concerned about that 6 feet social distance issue, I would say.
Well, so that's
So
good.
yeah, so there is a major upside to it. The only crimes I've seen are gun related crimes because people are at home more. So I've seen unfortunately tragic accidental crimes with weapons or firearms, things like of that nature.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Speaking of guns, so at first, gun stores were open. Uh, Denny drove by them and they had lines outside, very much like the same lines you would see at a grocery store.
Right.
And then came gun stores will now close because they're not essential. And then came a lot. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, that's been a big back and forth. A lot of friction with the LA County Sheriff's Department because the Sheriff's Department, they wanted to take the position that guns are not essential. It's like, we're here to protect you. What do you need guns for right now? Everyone's at home. There's just no need for it. The only thing they saw that would come of it was, domestic violence, things like that. So that was the position they were taking. But then you have, the Second Amendment advocates, the NRA, the big gun, pun intended, big gun, advocacy groups, and they filed suit right away on the Sheriff's Department. And already we saw this morning, the sheriff took an about face, like, you know what, it's not worth the litigation. I just don't want to deal with this. If the governor says in a sense, it's an essential thing, it's the Second Amendment, I'm not going to push it. And that's where it's at right now. It's a fascinating argument because the reason why people would say it's essential right now, even, is because the concern is that if there really is this lockdown that goes to July, August, September, and there's not enough food, people are afraid that they're going to be, that there's going to be crime on the streets. People are going to be banging down their homes. So that's where the argument is for, is it an essential thing to have protection of my home? And
Right.
obviously the other side you could anticipate.
Right. Well, and 2 months ago, all of this would have sounded like you're watching a little too much TV. But I actually understand the concern because, and it wasn't that, uh, actually, because things have changed so quickly. I heard 2 months ago of about a possible lockdown, and even then it sounded totally nuts to me, right? So now we are looking at, and they're virtual lockdowns. I hate the use of that word because then people get confused. There are stay at home orders, safer at home orders. whatever. But there is a real concern, and I don't think it's totally ridiculous that people might be concerned that if we go into a real lockdown where you're not able to go to the store to get food and you kind of have to make do with what the rations that you have at home, that
Right.
people are concerned that people will do desperate things during desperate times, and they feel a need to be able to protect themselves and their family. So it sounds crazy. It sounds like, The Walking Dead, but there are people out there who are really concerned about their own personal safety as we move along here. So, all right, let's stay with the courts for a moment before we talk about other things. If I put a headline out there that said celebrities demanding a special treatment during the coronavirus, okay, people would just. But this is happening, and it's happening inside prisons. We have celebrity prisoners. Can I call them that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, so celebrity prisoners who are filing motions that they want to get out early because they don't want to get the coronavirus. Who are we talking about? And I know there's a list of them.
Right. We're talking about people like Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Michael Avenatti, uh, and there's more out there. People that were taken down in the college cheating admission scandal. So high profile parents. And
Right?
they're all making that argument. Look, I didn't sign up for this. I may have signed up for a few months in custody, but not, this wasn't supposed to be a death sentence. And that's how they're seeing it, because obviously in custody, the social distancing measures are not being put into place. They can't physically be done.
Right.
So that's why we're seeing these kinds of requests coming down the pike.
And have you heard that are these cases being heard? Has anyone is are they getting any kind of response from the courts?
So that they're falling on deaf ears at this moment. I mean, the judges have to hear them, have to rule on them, so they can't just be kicked to the side. But they're not compelling enough to the judges for that whole reason of celebrity justice. Like, why are you in any better position to be let out than somebody else? Just because maybe you can afford an attorney to draft that motion, that extra type of motion, it's just not flying. If it does happen, it will be very interesting because that will get a lot of media attention.
Of course. And actually, just to hear you say that, it's like one of the first few things I've heard about the whole justice system. I'm very happy to hear and agree with. I think I also read like Bernie Madoff, wants to get out of jail early because he doesn't want to get the coronavirus. Is that I think I read that. First of all, I didn't even know he was still alive, but
Yeah, yeah.
okay, so that's a whole thing. And we're still going to stay with the courts because, as you know, there was a pastor in Florida who was arrested after holding church services where he had a ton of people congregate for Sunday Mass this past Sunday. Um, and that went against the stay-at-home order. Okay, so he was arrested, and most people that I've seen, the reaction on social media has been good. He needs to go to jail for something like that. But there are people who say, "Well, why?" Some people consider church services essential, and they said, "Well, all he did, he didn't force those people to come. What's happening there? And does he have a chance of kind of like getting off the hook?"
It's a fascinating case because if we peel the onion on that, it really gets down to the constitutional law issue of the First Amendment, because that's what he's saying is his protection. He's saying, I have the right under the First Amendment of the United States Constitution to practice my religion without the government infringing on that right. So, like you said, he's like, I'm just opening my door and we're worshiping, and the Constitution protects me. So, how can government come in, shut us down? That flies in the face of the Constitution. So, we're really eager to see what the constitutional law experts have to say about this. Maybe Alan Dershowitz will comment on it. Maybe Erwin Chemerinsky, Dean of Berkeley Law, will write a piece on it. But we can expect to see some really interesting give and takes on this in the next few weeks. I will tell you from my limited knowledge of constitutional law, really that I got in law school, is that when times are changing, when the country is in periods of emergency, the courts give a lot more latitude to the government to restrict or infringe on our rights. And I think that's where we're going to see a lot of this leaning. A lot of the times our emotion, our guts actually really do go along with the law. And I think on this one, I think, government's going to prevail on it.
Interesting. And you're right. I mean, these are unprecedented times. We can't just I mean, listen, when the IRS starts showing compassion, I think something really big is happening, right? I
And
mean,
landlords for that matter.
right, landlords and banks, banks
Banks, very
saying,
good.
"Oh, yeah, it's okay. You're okay for you're not paying your mortgage for next month. We're gonna let it slide." I mean, really, times
Yeah.
have got to be bad for rules to be bent, and so it'll be interesting to follow that case. We were talking about gun stores now being ruled as essential and being allowed to stay open. How about those pot shops out there? I've seen the memes. I've heard the jokes. They should be considered essential. Are they?
Can you get any more essential than cannabis in California, at least? Right? It's also, it's more of a medicinal type argument. Actually, that's where they're coming from, which is that people rely on this for medication. As we know, we don't need a prescription for medical marijuana like we did before a few years ago when it became just legalized completely. But I think a lot of people use it for medicinal purposes, and because the whole medical marijuana card has been eradicated, the medical marijuana shops have, or so the cannabis shops have no way of knowing who is buying this for medicinal purposes, who's buying it for recreational purposes. I'm sure the local government would like to draw that line because the issues they're having in these shops, like in Abbott McKinney, is that the 6 feet social distance issue in these shops is hard to be kept. They're getting flooded with people. So everything else is closed. That shop's open. It's naturally going to get people even just to look around. Uh, so that's where the conflict is created.
Did you see the pictures of the Brentwood farm market this past weekend?
No, I didn't.
Farmers
What are we
market?
talking about?
Okay,
Like,
so if you haven't seen it yet, there are photos from this past Sunday, Brentwood farmers market, and it's crawling with people. And there
mm,
was this huge uproar because I guess because it's farmers market, it's groceries, and they were
right.
allowed to open. But now it's been shut down because people were just like, shoulder to shoulder. That as we move along here, the local governments and the state governments are going to start, looking at these different cases, like looking at gun stores, looking at pot shops, looking at the farmers market, even though food is considered essential. But if you are having a tough time, keeping the social distance, then, they may find a way to go in there and shut you down. Now, the reason you're sitting in, looks like you're sitting in a courtroom. We know you're not. You're sitting inside your car. And I said, "Why are you in your car?" So you've been out shopping. Can you tell me what you've been doing?
Yeah, we're just trying in the local area to help out elderly people that you know shouldn't be going to the market unless they have to. So
Aw.
we have a lot of free time. Courts are, like we said, basically closed. So the next best thing I can do is we all can do is just help out where we can. We have a lot of free time and just pitching in.
So you're like doing grocery shopping for some elderly neighbors or friends that you know?
Yeah, people are just texting me their shopping lists, and
Aw.
I try to not leave things out. It's interesting to see what other people buy. What starts giving you ideas. Like,
Nice.
hey, I never thought of those cherry plums, or okay,
Awesome.
yeah,
There are, and now speaking of, because when I think of that, I think of Instacart and all of those people who are actually doing that for a living, and that is going to the grocery store for others. And there's been a lot of talk lately. They are concerned that they're not, one, not being paid enough, but two, they don't have the protections that they feel they need to continue working. Um, uh, do you think you're going to see, and I know you're not a labor law expert, but are we going to see more of these kind of employees wanting to take legal action against their employers for one, forcing them to work, but not giving them the protection they need? And do
it,
they
it's
have
r-
a leg to stand on?
it's fascinating, Lena, because we just are on the heels of the passing of AB 5. That's the law that the governor signed in just a few months ago, which technically takes effect, I think, in July, which makes all the gig workers, it converts them from independent contractors to employees, which as employees would give them those protections.
Right.
So they're operating at this moment under some like really some new law that really hasn't applied to them yet, and a lot of employees and employers want to challenge that law to get it on the November ballot as a referendum. But at this stage in the game, they're basically saying, look, we consider ourselves employees. The law looks at us as employees, even though it's a few weeks away. We need protections like any employee, any full-time employee in any office has. Even though we're driving around and we can shop as we want for people, we're employees, we're not getting protections, we're not getting hand sanitizers, we're not getting the face masks, and we're basically being abused. So they're striking. It's fascinating because they're striking just right when the law basically passes for their benefit. So it's just another fascinating legal issue that we're seeing coming out of this coronavirus climate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel for those people because if anyone has been to the grocery store lately, and also it depends on what area you're in, it's actually kind of becoming a kind of a scary situation where you feel like germs are all over, right? And you've got to, depending on what time of day you come, grocery stores are limiting the number of customers they let inside the store. So when you get there, you got to wait in line and you got to be, distanced from other people waiting in line. And then when you go into the grocery store, you're doing this kind of a Pac-Man thing where you go down an aisle and you see people. You know what I do? I go the other way because I'm very cognizant of how close I am with people. So it's it's really labor to go into the grocery store and buy your stuff anymore. So you've got these people out there who are putting themselves at risk, right? And I don't know how much they make. I would imagine probably not enough for the risk that they're putting themselves in. So I've been talking to my friends that if you're using Instacart or whatever app that you're using, that if you can, please tip these people. I mean, they're really putting themselves out there. I don't think they make a lot of money. So, whenever we can, I think that we should be helping people by tipping and, helping in the little ways like what you're doing, shopping for people. So I think that's really commendable, and I hope more people do that.
Well
The
said.
other thing is, just like I know the phone call like went away a long time ago. But I think the phone call is making a comeback. Like,
Ah,
right? Give someone a call,
uh,
if not asking them if they need anything or, but I think it's that connection that some people really need. You would be surprised how many people are social distancing, are isolated in their homes, and have no contact with anyone else. One, I think that's frightening and it's really sad.
yeah, I think we're going to see on the mental health side a lot of depression coming out of this, and hopefully we don't have that, but it does seem to be inevitable based on what you're saying. People feel very isolated and alone. I think our conversation we're having now is the longest conversation I've had in the past 2 weeks. So
Really? Yeah, I know. So maybe some good will come out of this. I said from the get-go, finally, social media is actually serving a good purpose,
I
right?
agree on that. Yes,
I
it
don't
is.
know how we would be surviving this without what we're able to do now. Talk to each other and give out information in a way where when if people choose to listen to it and hear it, they can choose to watch, and just checking up on people and feeling like we're not really social distancing, but just that physical distancing is what we need to do.
Right.
Um, I talked to you yesterday about what we can do if we can't afford to pay our bills anymore. And I said it doesn't hurt to just call up whatever utility that you're having an issue with. It does not hurt to put the effort and the time to call them. Tell them that you're having a hard time. Ask them, can I skip the next one? Can you forgo the late fees? So that's something we all should be doing if we need to, is to take it upon yourself to call the different utilities, your landlord, your insurance company, whoever, to see if they'll work with you. And I think you'd be pleasantly surprised that they are willing to work with you. Now, if you're in a situation where you cannot pay the rent or you didn't pay last month and you can't pay next month, what do? Can you be evicted during this time?
So the governor has made a very strict rule on that to the state that someone cannot be evicted for not paying rent. I think the cutoff is May 31st, but that could be extended. Actually, he could give more time for people to stay in. Now, what that translates into, and I like what you said, it's not that your rent goes away necessarily. You don't have to pay rent for these few months, but you can ask for it to be deferred,
Right.
or you add it, right? You say, we had a contract through September of 2020. Please don't charge me for these 2-3 months, but add on 3 more months of paid rent to October, November, December. That's what I'm hearing that a lot of landlords are doing. It's a very fair medium and compromise for everybody because everyone's in the same situation. So you're right. People should understand. Uh, Now, rent controls, certain buildings, they're not able also to raise their rents, but not every building is rent controlled, as we know in Los Angeles County. So that's a case by case basis. But if you have a question about that, you feel free to email me or message me. I'm connected with not a nonprofit organization that helps out tenants that are being wronged by their landlords. It's run by a really great attorney, and I'm happy to make that available to people.
Oh, good. Do you want to tell us now,
Yeah.
or do you want people just to contact you?
I want to have. I don't have the information like at my fingertips.
Oh,
It's
okay.
in one of my in my Rolodex, but I can definitely send a link to people if
Okay.
they message me. Yeah.
All right. You'll be able to find Lou Shapiro on Facebook. I will post some links as well. If they go to your website, would they be able to find contact information? So
Definitely.
loushapiro.com. Okay, because that
Yeah.
might be the easiest thing for people to remember. So loushapiro.com, and contact Lou, and he'll be able to point you in the right direction, especially if you've got these issues with your landlord. That is just awful. And so when I'm hearing stuff like that, Lou, I just want to remind like the majority of my friends, and I hear some of them complaining, like, I should be able to go to the beach if I want to, that the
Mhm.
majority of us are so lucky. Oh, poor us. We get to stay in our house and watch TV. And you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
come on. There are people who are dealing with one, maybe not having enough food, or dealing with maybe someone trying to kick them out of their house. There are people with much bigger problems out there than, what am I going to watch tonight, right?
Totally. It's all about keeping perspective. I couldn't agree with you more, Lena.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of going to the beach, okay, when it first came down that okay, you're safer at home, they put down this safer at home order. They want you to stay at home, don't want you to go out unless it's essential. What happened? Oh yay, we don't have to go to work. And then everyone flooded to the beaches and the hiking trails, and people were having parties, which I mean, I think it's ridiculous. It's so irresponsible, but I get it. Some people didn't take it seriously enough. Some people didn't understand how important this physical distancing is. So now more cities and states across the country have adopted these stay-at-home orders, and I'm going to also post a link because I know that we have people who are watching from other states as well. But what happened? Can you actually get in trouble if go out to the beach, or make a trip to a friend's house? Can you actually get in trouble if you get pulled over or whatever?
So 2 weeks ago, the answer was a no. But today, one could get in trouble, specifically for going to these public beaches or parks, which have been taped off, closed off, that have signs on it, closed due to the coronavirus pandemic. In Manhattan Beach, we saw a surfer actually get fined $1,000
I know.
for right. So, and the reason why the news picked up on it is because law enforcement reached out to the news and wanted this person to be the poster child, say this is what's going to happen to you. If you want to play games with fire, you're going to get burned by us. And it's for everyone's benefit.
Right. Someone messaged me, and they were shocked. They said that their mom was pulled over. She was on the freeway. She was pulled over. She was on her way to, I think, another relative's house, a cousin's house. And she was very honest about where she was going. And she was ticketed because she wasn't supposed to do that. If you get pulled over, they will likely ask you where you're going, why you're out here. I'm not saying to lie, because then what can happen? Well, then they can look at your driver's license, see where you live, and they're going to wonder why you're going to a grocery store in another county, right?
Right.
So the best thing for all of us to do is stay at home unless it's absolutely necessary for you to go out. So when they're talking about essential, like having to do what are they talking about exactly?
So there's actually a list that's put out by both the governor and Mayor Eric Garcetti, which is consistent with one another, and they list about 10 categories of people that are providing essential services, whether it's lawyers, doctors, custodial, janitorial services, medical, obviously, healthcare, and those if people fall under those umbrellas, they will be fine. But if they're outside of that, you can expect to get ticketed if you're caught. Now, just because someone is ticketed doesn't mean they're going to have to get convicted of something or have something on their record. they could very likely go to court, explain to the judge in 3 months the circumstances, and the judge may let it go, because this is obviously a case of first impression for many people. But it sets a tone for everyone to
Right.
be careful and wary.
And really, who wants to go through that, right? Having to go through the whole legal process when it starts up again. I mean, I don't envy you, Lou, because once
Hmm.
the whole court system gets up and gets running again, it's gonna be
Oh
a
yeah,
big mess. It's gonna be super duper busy.
yeah. Now we're going to be 1 year behind. That's right.
Oh,
So yeah,
that's awful. So, so if I've seen some businesses actually are providing their employees with letters in case you get pulled over, to show the police officer that you're on your way to work. This is where you work, and you're considered essential. Now, for the rest of us, so is- I don't work. I'm not gonna go anywhere. But what other essential things must I do that I'm okay going out for, like the grocery store, right?
that's basically it. Grocery store, medicine, uh, even clothing could be questionable at this point, because the argument by government could be, well, you could have just worn an old shirt. You don't need to have a new one today.
No, but wait a second. 2 days in a row, Lou? Really? The same
Okay,
shirt?
there you go. There may be a legal defense on that. That's true.
Okay, so if you're going out to get grocery stores, I believe if you have to fill up your car with gas, you're okay. I know the banks are open and that you can go to the bank, but I'm getting so many notifications from banks pretty much telling you, listen, if you can, do all your banking online and do it at home. You can still make deposits with the mobile app and stuff. Do whatever you can at home so that you limit, how often you have to go out, and how close you have to get to other people.
Right. And
When you're going shopping, Lou, what kind of precautions are you taking?
I'm always wearing gloves and a face mask. And originally they said that a face mask wouldn't make a difference, but then when you see everybody else wearing them, you're just like, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? I suppose, right? So
Right. In fact, I'm trying to get a doctor online with me, maybe today, later today, or tomorrow, to talk about this. And he has done a lot of research, and he's convinced that we need to mask up to help get
okay,
us over this. Now, as you know, and I know you've been following, all this coronavirus stuff very closely, but information changes sometimes hourly, right? Like in the morning, you can wake up with one thing, and then by that night, it's changed.
right.
So, yes, in the beginning, they said, don't wear them. They're not going to help you. Now, some doctors believe that they actually do. And I come from the school of it's better than nothing, right?
Right.
Um, so I hope to get him on to hear his thoughts on why he believes it's actually essential that if you're going out, that you should wear a mask. And now we're used to seeing it. I mean, I see it everywhere.
Yeah. And if you want an introduction to Dr. Sam Fink, he's a friend of mine. He's been on CNN and Fox News lately. He was one of the first doctors, happens to be out of Los Angeles, out of the Valley, plug to the Valley, that just came out and said, hey, we need to get ahead of this. It's going to be a big problem. Everyone seems to be underestimating it. And he's even had a couple patients with it. So if
Wow.
you want an introduction to Sam, Dr. Fink, I'm happy to help you with that.
Oh
And I'm
yeah.
sure he would love to come on.
Oh, I'd love to talk to him.
Yeah.
I'm still I'm a really level-headed person. I mean, people are always trying to force me into one corner or another. It's like, well, are you liberal or are you conservative? I'm like, neither. And some people find that like totally unbelievable, but neither. And I'm very level-headed, but I am shocked at still the amount of people who are not taking this seriously enough. I don't think people realize that, yeah, we're kind of behind, right? We're behind in this whole game. But the more you resist this staying at home thing, the more you resist it, the longer it's going to have to go on.
Right. It's we're seeing it more with the younger generation, sadly, and it's this sense of entitlement that the experts in public policy are saying, that they don't want to miss their spring break. This is what they've been waiting for the whole year. Uh,
Right.
and I don't know, like maybe a generation later, we're just looking back like spring will be here next year. You'll have another chance.
Right.
You have
Did
an opportunity to save a life. Like seize that. You know.
did you see the story of the father whose son came back from spring break, and the father wouldn't let him in the house. Did you see this?
I didn't, but good for that father for taking
Right.
that hardline position.
So what happened was son was out at spring break. I believe it was Cabo. I'm not sure. And he kept on trying to get his son to cut the trip short, come back now, cut the trip short. Son refused. Son comes home,
Mhm.
brings some friends with him. And dad was like, stay right there. I mean, he stopped him in the front yard and said, you're not coming in the house. And, mom and dad also have elderly parents in the home. And a lot of people praise this father thinking he did the right thing. And it wasn't that he didn't just turn his son away. He says, there's the car. I got you groceries. Here's $300, whatever it is. But you need to stay away until this blows over. So I think that was great. I think it's the right thing to do. Do you find yourself maybe in the beginning kind of feeling a little weird about the whole social distancing thing, that it felt rude? Did you ever feel that?
You know, I didn't, because I think that we naturally, our generation was somewhat, we were very intuitive people. And I think I already had a Purell hand sanitizer in my car.
Hmm.
And anytime I would have a passenger come in, they would also use it. So remember, I'm going to the courts every day. So, shaking hands, touching things. And I was always of the school about, why not? Like you said, what hurts it? So I had it in the car, and now it's worth $100. So
Yeah.
who knew?
Right. Well, so a couple of weekends ago, before everything shut down, our family went for a walk up in the hills of the house, and there's nobody, hardly any, it's wilderness. So there's really no one there. But we ran into three groups of people, and there's like, three, groups of two. And first thought was, oh my God, there's people. What do we do? Right. Because we're on a trail. And then I stepped aside to let them by, and when they passed by me, I turned my head so that I wouldn't be facing them. And then I felt awful for doing it. So in the beginning, I really felt like, oh gosh, it's so rude not to greet people. Like, I want to talk to them because that's the kind of person I am. And at first I just felt it was so rude. Um, but now I think it's just kind of expected. And I actually think people appreciate, that you take the extra precautions to not talk to them, not, where no one's gonna shake hands anywhere. Hey, do you think the handshaking thing is gonna go away for good?
No, I think it will come back. I think in a year, when we're past this and when there's a vaccine for this, it will pass, because we really, we historically, these kinds of pandemics of this gravity are really once every 100 years. The last one that they're comparing this to was the Spanish flu in 19, I think it was 1910, around that.
Mm.
So I think, and with our age of information always being fed to us, we have like walking amnesia in a way. So I think people will always remember this, but we will also will overcome it stronger. We'll be more friendly. I think it'll be the opposite at the end. Well, people will want to shake hands more, like, oh, we can shake hands again, we can hug again. Um, we're
Isn't
done. We're
it
past this.
isn't it weird? Like, you know how the Facebook memories come up? And some of these memories come up, and, you're taking pictures and you got your arms around people, and, like, you look at it,
Right.
and it looks like it was a decade ago. And then I'm thinking ahead, and I'm thinking, hopefully in a year when these memories come up on my Facebook again, that it'll be a distant memory. And it's like, oh my God, yeah. Do you remember that? Do you remember when, like we couldn't hug, or we couldn't shake hands, and we couldn't gather, and I encourage, like, my kids, and Denny has a daughter who's in college. By the
Mhm.
way, there are so many kids who are supposed to be graduating this year, and look at,
Yeah.
right? No graduation. Denny's daughter graduates from USC in a couple of months. There will be no graduation ceremony.
No. It's very
Um,
sad.
yeah, it's really sad for them because they worked hard, and that's like a
Right.
big deal for them.
Yeah, a
But
wedding you could always reschedule. A
right,
graduation you can't. That's
right.
the
Or
thing, yeah.
funerals. I've had
Right.
friends who've had funerals who they can't have a funeral.
Yeah.
Um, but I said to Denny's daughter, and to a bunch of young people, I'm like, but you know what? Like, take everything in. Like, remember this, document it,
Mhm.
because you're going to have quite a story to tell. Like, can you imagine, like, if you could talk to someone who survived something like this back then? It's fascinating to listen to about what happened.
Right.
So while we're experiencing it now, like take a moment to really take it all in. I think that people should, maybe write in a journal or keep a video journal or something, because I think it's going to be valuable to us in the future when you're talking to your kids, your grandkids, to be able to show them this is what we went through. I think
There's
you know,
Yeah, there's going to be so much to celebrate. I mean, already we're getting positive news today, and the LA Times reported that Dr. Fauci has said that we in California we may have actually all our social distancing may have actually prevented quite a peak, because it's everyone's like, well, it was supposed to be this week and next week, and we're not seeing that peak. So at some point, if there is no real high peak, then we essentially beat it in a way. We may have
right.
conquered it and saved a million lives. I mean, we can say collectively as a civilization that we saved a million lives. I mean,
Yeah,
how many generations can say something like that?
right.
That's
And
how
and
that's how we can look at it.
as you hear all the news about how late we were to the game, blah, blah, blah. At this point, we really can't look back, because you can only take care of what's happening today, right? To prevent what may happen tomorrow. California was the first state to implement these stay-at-home orders, right? A lot of people were not happy about it.
Right.
The people of they can't stop me. I should be able to go anywhere I want kind of people. But California was first, and it looks like we're seeing some good news. Now,
Yeah.
the problem, Lou, as you know, because you've dealt with people of all walks of life, that when the catastrophe doesn't happen, instead of realizing that we were able to avoid it because we did this thing, right? You're
Right.
going to get people to say, "See, I told you it wasn't
Oh,
bad."
it was nothing. We overreacted.
Right.
I lost 2 months of income for nothing.
Right. See, and I would rather, this is the kind of situation where I think it's better to over prepare, right, than to under prepare.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be mad that more people didn't die, that's going to be better than you're going to be mad that too many people died, right?
Agreed. And we have other countries to look to. I mean, look at England, look at Italy, look at China. I mean, it's not like we're just making this up out of thin air. So I
Right.
think when you have a benchmark to compare to, the argument's a lot stronger.
Yes. And then when we're each time anyone starts bringing up China, and people have theories as to where this came from, I still stand with, regardless of when, where, why, how this came about, this virus, it's here, right? So, like, at this point, really doesn't matter whether it was engineered, whether it's natural, whether, who came up, but it's here. So we need to do whatever we need to do to keep ourselves alive first. And then we can start looking at who to blame. But at this point, it's here, and we need to do what we can to keep everyone safe.
Well said.
All right. Did we miss anything? Well, I'm sure we missed a bunch of things. There's a ton of stuff to talk about. But anything else you wanna talk about?
Well, the only thing we didn't do, I think, was discover a cure to the coronavirus in this conversation. So we'll have to use that. We'll save that for the next segment, right?
We'll work on that. We'll start working on that. Lou Shapiro, you can find him at loushapiro.com, especially if you've got any issues with your landlord. He does have a very good connection that may be able to provide you with some relief. So loushapiro.com. And if you go on my Facebook, I'm going to post a link so you can find him on there as well. So Lou, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing with helping
Likewise.
some of your elderly friends with grocery shopping, all that. I think that's awesome. And maybe the next time we talk, we'll have some like great, awesome news to talk about. Or maybe we'll hear you sing next time,
It's a deal, Lena. It's a
right?
deal.
You can sing, right?
Absolutely. Hey, so can you. So maybe we'll do a duet.
There you go. Before we go, so the first time I talked to Lou, he said something to me. I'm like, I love this guy. So when Lou is in trial, he likes to use song lyrics. And I'm like, what? He likes to be able to pull song lyrics and kind of work his no, I'm just going to generalize everything, make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. But whether he's maybe making a closing argument, to be able to pull a song lyric and apply that to what he's talking about, I think it's awesome. I would love to see you actually sing your closing argument, and then you would be like the greatest attorney on earth. Not
Oh,
that
when
you're
you
not
put it
already.
that way, I mean, How could I
You're gonna
refuse?
you're gonna start practicing. All right, Lou Shapiro, thanks for coming on and talking to us. I really appreciate you. I hope that you stay safe,
Too.
and we'll talk to you again.
Stay safe, Lane. See you later.
Okay, bye.